Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rapid City Legal and Finance Committee meeting for December 12th, 2018. I'd like to start this meeting off, please, with a roll call and determination of a quorum. Here.
Here.
Great. Now that a quorum has been established, I'd welcome a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Move to adopt.
Mr. Solomon
Second.
moves to adopt the agenda. Mrs. Drury seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to our general public comment portion. This is the time for any member in the audience to discuss items currently not on today's agenda. We have one. Do we have any others that I'm not aware of? Mr. Casper, would you be so kind to come up to the podium? You have 3 minutes.
Maybe the bulb is burned out?
Oh, there we go. He's on it.
Oh, shoot.
You're on.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here representing the Veterans Honor Banner Project, which I think you all know about. And I'm coming before you with a problem that you may not have ever encountered before. We put up 90 banners this past year, honoring veterans. And we have the possibility of 26 more hangars available to us. But as of yesterday, we have 55 people that have applied for banners for next year. So we've got a problem. We don't have enough hangars right now to accommodate those people and more that I suspect are coming. We were turned down by the Vision Fund in our request. I'm not sure if we didn't ask for enough money or what it was, but we weren't in compliance with 3.16.090, the committee, and didn't really have an explanation for why. But be that as it may, the problem now becomes where are we going to get the banner hangers? And we've got 2 possible solutions that I wanted to bring before you today. One is the committee purchases banner hangers, gives them to the city with the agreement that the project gets to use them for a certain dates each year. The second solution was we give the money to the city to buy the banner hangers, again with the agreement that the project gets to use them on certain dates each year. We've targeted several areas. There's quite a few areas in town. Sheridan Lake Road from Catron Boulevard into Jackson Boulevard, West Main, past the guard camp, Canyon Lake Drive. But we've targeted 2 areas that we'd like to see hangars go up on. And that one is the West Boulevard area from St. Patrick Street to Quincy Street. And in meeting with the West Boulevard Association, they're in agreement that they would like to see hangers up there because they could use them for a couple of their projects that they have. And the other area would be on St. Joe Street from East Boulevard to St. Patrick Street, past the School of Mines. And they're on board with this. They would like to see banner hangers because they've got literally hundreds of veterans and faculty that served all the way from World War I up to the present time. So those are the 2 areas we are really targeting. And there's many other streets in town too that could. We'd like to see this project grow. We're looking at the possibility next year of 150 to 175 banners up honoring veterans. So somehow we need to get the hangars one way or the other. So those were 2 solutions which I can see would constitute a legal problem as far as us either giving the banners to the city or giving the city money to buy the banners. So that's why I'm here before you. We just want to acquire more hangars so we can honor more veterans. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. I think that's a good problem to have. Do we have any questions for Mr. Casper while we have his attention? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, and we'll keep that dialogue open. Okay. All right. General public portion is now closed. We're going to move to our consent items on the agenda, which are numbers 1 through 11. We're going to open this up to public comment. Is there anyone to speak on that? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'd welcome a motion to approve the... No? Oh, what? Oh, never mind. That threw me off. Okay. Steve. Mr. Solomon, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
okay.
may I pull item number 2, please?
Okay, great. Number 2, anyone else? Mr. Lewis?
Item number 5, please.
Number 5. Okay, we're going to pull items 2 and 5.
Move to approve.
Okay. Any seconds?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mrs. Drury, second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor of approving items 1 through 11 with the exception of 2 and 5, say aye.
Aye.
And motion carries. Okay, let's go to item number 2. Mr. Solomon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to make a motion to approve, if I can get a second and retain the floor.
Okay,
And may I direct a question to our Assistant Police Chief?
absolutely.
Hello, Chief Hedrick. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about, one, what this quality of life unit is going to do, and in this situation, what Collective Impact's role is in this agreement with us.
You bet. Thank you. So last year we received a grant from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and it's specifically referred to as the Collective Healing Grant. And traditionally, law enforcement, we've become the 24/7 caretakers for the most vulnerable people in our community. And what we're really trying to do is get these folks connected with resources and care providers in our community, hopefully to treat some of the underlying poverty or substance abuse issues, get them the help they need to get back on their feet. Specifically to the item dealing with Collective Impact, we're hoping to partner with them to create a foundation of care, a service provider network. So, for example, we work with somebody out in the community that's on the streets. We get them out of that crisis, that immediate crisis, and then get them connected with service providers. And we're talking about more of a long-term approach, a handoff to these service providers that can continue to work with them to get them back up on their feet.
So you all aren't the ones deciding which service provider they are going to go to. You're using Collective Impact to kind of figure out which route is best for them?
Correct. Collective Impact has done a lot of work with the service providers in our community, and right now probably one thing we would want to focus in on is an actual service provider network. So for example, some of our providers aren't using the same actual infrastructure or like a computer network, and one provider might be providing a service and another provider might be providing the same service without those two knowing it. So we're hoping we can streamline the process a little bit as well with working together with Collective Impact.
Okay. Thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Solomon to approve, second by Mrs. Drury. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Moving to item number 5, regarding resolution number 2018-093. Mr. Lewis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
And if I could retain the floor for a second. Excuse me, I just want to say that obviously this is, I saw an item in the paper this morning that kind of caused me to pull this, otherwise I wouldn't really bother with it, but this is not a situation where we're, just decided we're not going to let people pay their bills. These are just obviously items that are not collectible. We've gone through all the process of trying to collect them. They're not there. It's an accounting maneuver, just something to get them off the books, so it doesn't look like we have a bunch of debt we're carrying that's otherwise collectible. And I was in Pure a couple of years ago with the former mayor and a couple other fire officials, and they were trying to get a bill to get passed that would allow us as a city or as an ambulance service, to negotiate directly with the insurance companies so we could, get paid directly. And correct me if I'm wrong. And that was obviously shot down by a lot of lobbyists from the insurance company business, and they didn't want us to do that. So the way it works now is that the person that's in the ambulance service gets paid directly as the person gets paid, and then they have to pay us, and we have to, it'd be much easier if we could just be paid directly like everything else you do. The insurance companies pay your doctor, they pay the hospital, but they don't pay us for this service. And so that's where we get the loss of revenue, and that's what's going on here. So it's not something that we're doing wrong. It's just something that we are not legally allowed to do. And so I think it's important that the public knows that this is not a misstep on our part or the people at the ambulance service or the fire department and people running the service, the finance department. They're doing their best, but they're not legally allowed to go ahead and and collect those fees directly. So just want to make sure that's understood, and I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Valid statements. Thank you for explaining that in further detail. We have a motion on the floor to approve, second by Mrs. Drury. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. We're at the end of the consent calendar. We're going to move to non-consent items. Public comment is now open. Any? Okay. And now the general public portion is now closed. We're going to move to item 12, which is a request from the Community Health Center of the Black Hills to use excess vision funds allocated to Mental Health Pod for medical records storage facility. Welcome a motion. Okay, we have a motion to deny, a second by Mr. Lewis. All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right, moving to item 13. It's an introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6293, regarding supplemental appropriation number 8 for 2018. Welcome a motion. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Solomon, second by Mr. Lewis. All in favor? Aye. Great. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 14, we have approve a resolution for 2018-086, a request by KTM Design Solutions, Inc. for SSST LLC and Zanstra Real Estate Holdings to consider an application for a resolution to reallocate plans costs for TID number 65, Amendment 1, for property generally described as being located south and west of Elks Country Estates and east of Elkvale Road.
Hi, Patsy Horton, Long Range Planning.
Yep.
I just want to give you some quick history of this particular tax increment district. It was created in 2007 to address some issues with the neighborhood when Elkvale was reconstructed and their access from South Valley Drive into the subdivision was removed. There were a couple developers involved at the time. Developer 1 owned generally this portion. Developer 2 owned the portion on the east. And so this is an aerial from 2005, 2006 that identifies the development at the time. This is an aerial from April this year that identifies the current development and the difference between those two areas and what we have going on out there now. You can see Elkvale constructed in the northwest corner there. Here is the construction of Minnesota Street. At the time, there were some joint areas that were going to be developed with both developers. And so here's the public improvements map associated with this particular district. Again, Minnesota Street was constructed or was identified to be constructed. There was some regional storm drainage with a pond. There was the access connection from the existing Willow Bend down to Minnesota Street to get those folks from Jolly Lane and Elks Country Estates over to Elkvale. There was some grading associated with Minnesota Street, and then Developer 2, which is Dennis Zanstra, was the construction of Minnesota Street east of the quarter line with some regional detention and irrigation pond with Developer 2. Now I mentioned the shared costs. The shared costs included the grading, a portion of Minnesota Street, so there's some sharing. And so what we have here today is the request to reallocate funds to match their expenditures that they've submitted for reimbursement. Between the time the agenda was first published and today, we were working on the agreement to implement this particular plan, and we had missed the imputed administrative fees. Those fees are interest-free, and they do not cost the developer. They come out of the tax increment revenues. So I just want to make sure that the developer does not have to pay for those. It's the increment generated. But with that, both the Tax Increment Committee and the Planning Commission does recommend approval, and we would request that we also include those fees for the city to recoup some of those costs associated with the certification. And then I just wanted to give you a little history of what their master plan shows. Here's Minnesota Street again. One thing to note is there is a 5-year timeline where you have to get your projects under construction. This portion of Minnesota Street was about a week behind that 5-year timeline, so council approved a second tax increment district to address the eastern portion of Minnesota. They did not approve that burying of the irrigation pipe, nor did they approve the regional detention pond that they had requested. The only cost involved was Minnesota Street. So with that, we do make that recommendation to approve.
Ms. Horton, thank you. If you could stand by for some questions. Mr. Lewis is in the queue. You have
Thank you,
the
Madam
floor.
Chairman. I make a motion to approve with the above-mentioned changes.
Second.
Okay, we've
And Ms.
got-
Horton, if I could, just for clarification, we made that approval of the just Minnesota Street and not the detention, Dan. That was about 2015 or 14, was that about right?
That was 2013. At the end of
2013, yeah, okay.
2013.
I do remember the discussion. I'm just making sure. Boy, time flies. Okay, thank you. No,
And given this is 11 years old, and us being new to the council, a couple of us, the historical chronology is very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Lewis, a second by both of these two. All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to number 15, it's an introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6291, an ordinance amendment to update the requirements for private garages by amending sections 17.04.315, 17.08.030N, 17.38.030L, as well as 17.58.030L of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Mr. Solomon's in the queue. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to our Community Development Director, Ken? Ken, do you want to just give us an overview? I know we have the staff report attached, but a brief overview of what this is doing.
Yes, I have Vicki Fisher, Planning Division Manager here, that I'll let her make some comments.
Vicki, do you want to just tell us all what this is about?
Madam Chair,
Okay.
thank you. So the current definition of a garage, it's not clear that it includes all the accessory dwelling units, or dwelling structures rather, accessory structures. So if you had a shed, or if you had a craft room, do those count extra? Is it just garage? And we've been calculating that all of those accessory structures go towards the definition of a private garage. This clarifies that, makes it clear to the property owner and clear for us as we bring these applications forward.
Okay, thank you.
Well, she should, exactly. Any other questions? All right, we have or do we have a motion?
I can't make it, I just talked.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving along to number 16. It is the second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6292, an ordinance to revise the requirements for townhouses by amending section 17.50.020, as well as 17.50.030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Absolutely, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. May I direct a question to Ken Young, please?
Absolutely.
Ken, is this again is just going through the motions to clarify the ordinance for setbacks, correct?
That's correct. It's a housekeeping item. Just to clarify that, there's been some confusion as to how we should set back our townhomes depending on what road it's on. And so we wanted to clarify that and also base it on a zoning determination.
Okay, and I thank you for that, and I thank you for all these cleanup items that you're bringing forward to make things consistent across the city, too. I yield.
Okay, great, thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Mrs. Drury. Do I have a second? A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Last but not least, we have a presentation from our Community Development Department.
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity for us to be able to make this presentation. Basically, it's going to be an overview of what we are doing in the department and things that we see coming down the road or coming down the pike, as you see on our presentation. This is going to be the title of our new format for our newsletter from the department. We've been doing a smaller, brief version of a newsletter quarterly, and I think what we're going to end up doing here is make it bi-monthly, and with the focus of what is actually coming, what we're planning, the projects we're working on. There may be a little bit in there as to numbers or figures that will relate to what has happened, but most of all, we want to focus on what's coming down the pike. So we have included in this, I just remembered that I forgot to bring you a copy of our newsletter upon which this presentation is based. So when I get we'll get that coming to you here in just a few minutes. But this will give you an overview of that newsletter, and we will be presenting that to you here in just a minute. So I've invited our staff members who have participated in putting some of this information together to actually make the presentation that relates to their work. Hopefully just 1 to 3 minutes each, so we don't have a super long presentation. But we do want to, we're appreciative of this opportunity to just get our information out a little bit more so that you can understand what our department is involved in and what you can expect to see coming down the pike. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to, first of all, these are the representatives of our various divisions, and each one of those will be represented here in this department. So we're going to start with current planning and turn the time first over to Fletcher Laycock, who will be presenting some of our information on our plan developments. I'm sorry, no, it was actually John Green. John is our new planner. If you haven't met him, he's been here now, what is it, 6 months? How long have you been? 7 months. Doing a bang-up job, and we appreciate what he's doing here. So he'll present to you some of the new developments you'll be seeing.
Thank you. As Ken mentioned, my name is John Green. I'm current planning division. So the city's had a chance to review several exciting and unique projects this fall, so we wanted to highlight a few of those specifically. The first one was submitted by Fleet Farm, which is a home supply superstore, kind of like a Menards retail home supply mix. And the site plan that was submitted was for a 202,000 square foot retail store in addition to a car wash and gas station. So that was reviewed as a building permit. We've also reviewed different pieces of it as a conditional use permit. This property is about 37.5 acres in size and is on East Mall Drive, directly east of the Hilton Garden Inn. So that's something that will be coming forward after the first of the year as another building permit. The second site is at the Brain Injury Rehabilitation Center facility at 803 Susan Drive with Black Hills Works Foundation. So this past October, they submitted an initial plan development overlay to allow 9 detached dwelling units to serve as transitional housing for patients that are undergoing treatment at the center as they transition out from that facility. So it's intended that final plan development would be submitted for this, and each of these dwelling units would constitute their own phase of development. So we'll see these come forward in the coming years as their clientele and services expand. And then finally is another initial plan development overlay for the proposed Dakota Market Square project. And this is at the existing Kmart property on East North Street. So if you're familiar with that property right now, it's a pretty large contiguous sheet of concrete. So part of this plan, a big focus point is to improve landscaping on the site. In addition, it's to update facades, add in retail. As part of this plan, about 7,000 new square feet of retail space would be added in addition to restaurants and so forth on the parking lot. So it's kind of a whole site approach, and that's something we would anticipate to see after the first of the year as well. With that, I'd be happy to field any questions, and if not, I'll turn it over to Fletcher.
Great. Any questions? Oh, great. And we now have copies. Thank you.
Fletcher Laycock, Planner 3 in the current planning division. One of the goals of the comprehensive plan is to streamline application and development and to improve government efficiency. And so to better serve future development and to keep ahead of trends, staff is looking at fixing sections of the ordinance. Examples are the townhomes and oversized garage ordinances that you saw this today, fixing some contradictions and errors throughout the ordinance, which we notice as we're reviewing development applications. So in January, there will be working sessions with City Council with accessory dwelling units and vacation home rentals. And then these are some examples of things that staff's currently working on, hoping to bring forward in the future. Office commercial district is allows a mix of offices, medical, and residential, and we're exploring how that can be changed and updated to keep ahead of trends. So what we kind of look at is staff works on these, bring it up as discussion items among staff. We also have coffee with planners, which is a new thing that our director has brought with him to Rapid City. And so we work with the public through that on these issues, and then take the ordinance amendments to Planning Commission and Legal and Finance and City Council. So we do get a lot of input on this, and this just gives you an idea of how we're continuing to update and keep up with development in the city. So any questions?
Great, thank you.
So one of the most exciting parts of being a planner and looking at development in our city is when we see a property owner or a group of property owners that come in with a master plan. They've potentially purchased or are trying to purchase large acres of property, and we look at it as a whole, even though they may be developing it in phases. We brought a few of them forward today to bring to your attention. The one on the screen right now is Shepherd Hills subdivision. It includes 700 acres. It's located between East North Street, adjacent to Menards, all the way south to South Dakota Highway 44, just north of Western Dakota Tech. This includes an industrial node, several commercial corridors, and a large area for diversified housing. The developer has identified that not only will there be areas of extended commercial, which we see with the Menards development right now, but an industrial component further to the east. And that diversified housing would include housing for the students at Western Dakota Tech. So they're very much a vested, interested party in looking at these come forward. In order to ensure that a portion of these become affordable in workforce housing, they've looked at some unique concepts. One of them in this development is identified as tiny homes. We really don't have a zoning regulation that may have setbacks, lot size, parking for tiny homes. So we will be working with this developer to create one. And you'll be seeing that one coming forward, either specific to this property or in a general format for the city as a whole. Part of the commercial will include large components of medical facilities. Some of that you've heard in the news. Perhaps there might be a veterans facility. Some of the housing is being catered for the veterans' needs as well. And there's an area set aside for a future school because it does include so many rooftops. And we should ensure, as we see these come forward, that there's always open space, areas for drainage, walking trails, etc., so that we have those amenities available to the residents that someday may live in this area. This is another one that you've seen already, Freeland Ranch. If you're going down La Crosse Street headed towards the mall, don't turn in, just keep going. It'll kind of dead end into this property so that east lot line, which is on the right hand of the screen, is the future location of La Crosse Street. This is 128 acres. You have seen a preliminary subdivision plan for the very southwestern lot that came in as a CDBG project to have some affordable apartment units. In this project, there will be some neighborhood commercial, office commercial uses, but its primary goal is to create affordable and workforce housing. Through all the units that are identified, this developer has indicated that 360 units will be reserved for that affordable housing component. So we're excited to see this one come in as well. Lastly, this is looking at the intersection of Catron and Mount Rushmore Road. It would be the northwest corner, known as Buffalo Crossing West. We all saw Buffalo Crossing in the southeast corner jump up over the last few years, and with all the dirt work going on out there at this site right now, we're working with this developer to create additional platted lots. He's identified that the primary component to this will be a medical facility, but there will be also commercial uses that won't only serve the traveling public, but all of the rooftops in the area. These will include restaurants, coffee shops, there will be a hotel, a convenience store, and rumor has it there's even going to be a vet clinic on the site. So we're looking forward to having these come forward, and it's certainly going to change the horizon of our city as we see these be developed in phases. Any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Kelly Brennan, Long Range Planning. One of the projects we're working on right now is a comprehensive plan amendment. Plan Rapid City was adopted in 2014, and since then, city staff has noticed some discrepancies, mostly between future land use designations and some zoning districts. We also need to include urban commercial, our new zoning, into those categories now as well. There are also some specific locations throughout the city that have either grown and developed differently than anticipated or were initially given an incorrect designation, and so we're also going to clean up those locations. We've listed a few on the screen here, and then the graphic shows over on Creek Drive. The area that's in bold was originally low-density neighborhood, which is not really appropriate for this area as the underlying zoning was general ag, light industrial, and flood hazard. So changing it to light industrial made more sense. We're hoping to bring this forward around March and being able to assist the Planning Commission in their decisions. Any questions?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kip Harrington, Transportation Planning, Long Range Planning. Some of the projects Transportation Planning is working on. Our first one is an analysis of the Sheridan Lake Corridor. This is sponsored through our Public Works Department, and Transportation Planning is participating as well. This corridor extends from Alberta Drive on the south near Countryside all the way up through Corral Drive on the north. Taking a look at that Sheridan Lake Road corridor, which experiences a lot of school-related congestion. So we're looking at widening possibly, or intersection improvements, or even alternate connections through that area that would help relieve some of that traffic. This study's been going on for about a year, should be done early next year. Second one I'm working on is the East Rapid City Corridor and Traffic Analysis Study. This encompasses the Omaha Street Corridor, the Campbell Street Corridor, and the East-North Street Corridor east of Campbell. So that takes up by the Rushmore Crossing area and a lot of that new development that Vicki just talked about with Shepherd Hills. So this study will also look at corridor expansion, possibly intersection improvements, and those alternative connections, and to see what can be done to alleviate some of the traffic in that area. We also are updating our Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan, and that basically brings together all of our nonprofit transit service providers like Black Hills Works and the Club for Boys, YFS, things like that, and takes a look at all of them and figures out how they can work together better to serve their constituents. Also working on a few at the South Dakota Department of Transportation, and the big one you'll see coming up is a Highway 16 corridor study, which will extend all the way south from the Keystone Y up to Cathedral Drive in the north in Rapid City. And we'll focus on two areas specifically. The first is the intersection of US Highway 16 and Neck Yoke Road in the Hart Ranch area. If you've been through there, that intersection can be very confusing. There's some safety issues there, so that'll take a look at that and see what can be done there. And the next one will be the Catron Boulevard, Mount Rushmore Road, US 16 intersection right near Buffalo Crossing West. That was previously studied and came up with a couple different ideas for what that interchange would look like in the future. This corridor study will further analyze that and will come up with a recommended alternative. And I expect to see those studies done early in the next year as well. US 16 will take a little longer than that. That's all I have. Any questions?
We do have one question. Mr. Lewis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Quick question for you, too, actually. On your studies for the Sheridan Lake Corridor, are you incorporating the rapid ride and new routes with that at all? Is that part of that, or is that something different?
That has not been taken a look at this. This is strictly a traffic study.
Okay. And then secondly, I assume this is taking a hard look at Sheridan Lake Road and Jackson Boulevard, Catron Boulevard as well?
Yes, that is included.
And is there any recommendations on how to change that flow, basically, or that intersection, make it a little more safe?
Absolutely. That's a major component of the study.
Okay. Just making sure. I know that's a huge problem in our
questions.
part of the world. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Drury, she has a question?
No.
No, she doesn't.
Good afternoon, Sarah Hansel, Long Range Planning Division. I have a few updates coming from the Historic Preservation Commission and projects in the downtown area generally. The Historic Preservation Commission has been working on using their grant funding to develop some education and outreach materials for the community. Last year they developed a walking tour of historic architecture in the downtown area. It's a great piece for visitors and residents alike. They are also working on a printed piece this year that will be a guide for historic property owners, kind of an overview of the historic review process, how to get connected to resources, and we're hoping that that will be a good tool to, first of all, remind people that they're in the historic district. Sometimes that's not on people's radar, and then second of all, get them connected to information for when they're planning a project. Item number 2 on that list is downtown parking. This fall, on the heels of following the downtown master plan and then the parking study, we underwent a parking pilot to start testing some new options for metering technology. A team of city staff has been evaluating all of that information, looking at projected costs and revenues and the features available for different products. We're kind of in the weeds on that, and we are looking forward to bringing forward a proposal sometime in February or March for the council to consider.
Perfect.
And then lastly, the 6th Street Promenade. This is a project looking at the connection between the Civic Center, Memorial Park area to the rest of downtown, particularly options for an improved pedestrian crossing. We've underwent a year of community outreach and kind of doing some visioning and putting together some conceptual ideas for improvements to this corridor. The main idea, the big idea for this corridor is an improved pedestrian crossing that would divert traffic underneath Omaha, sort of a big dig at the Rapid City level. And so there would be an at-grade extension of the park over Omaha Street. It's a big idea. It requires a lot more planning and research, but what we want to do is shortly after the new year bring forward just a summary of the work that we've done this year to get some early feedback and look at potential for next steps. Great. So if there's no questions, I will hand it over to Brad.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, Brad from Building Services. What we're talking about is 2 items. One is the building permit report. This year, in 2018, $307 million in valuation of permitted construction made it the 2nd best year. There's some talk in the news of us making the best year to $320 million, but there's going to have to be some pretty brisk permit activity in December to achieve that. But anyway, it's the 2nd best year. Another thing was yesterday we had issued 3,648 permits. As of yesterday, 38 permits were totaled for more than $1 million, which totaled $207 million in permitted construction. So in just 38 permits, more than 2/3 of the permit valuation went out on those permits. About less than $100 million went for all the other permits, or other 3,610 permits. So the big permits really carried it this year. The other thing is the Rapid City Building Board has been working on the adoption of the new building code edition and the 2018 editions. They've been working on those since April or so. The building code, the residential code, the mechanical code, the fuel gas code, the property maintenance code are all ready. They had their building board meeting yesterday, and they approved those to bring those to City Council for adoption as ordinances, so you'll be seeing those in the future. One of the issues with the residential code was there was a local group that was opposed to the adoption of the energy code sections, and a couple of engineers also spoke about that they were concerned about that. So the energy code's not going to be before you when they do submit these to you. Those have been omitted. So other than that, that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Barb, of course. Last but not least.
Barb with the CDBG program. As you know, the CDBG program has 3 main things that it tries to achieve, and that is development of decent housing. And in the development of decent housing, that goes everything from emergency shelters up to nursing homes can be covered under the grant. Suitable living environment. Within that, it's what can we do to help make families stable and productive in the community. So that includes our public services and public facilities that offer services to them. And then in the third part, it's the economic development, and that is job creation, job training, micro enterprise loans to help people start businesses that help supplement their income. The city receives an average of about $460,000 a year over the past few years. This year, for 2018, we got $491,989, and I say we got because we finally got it today in our account, so I have money to spend finally. But considering our program year started April 1, and in December we're getting our funds, that makes it very hard to make our spend down ratio in January, because they don't have time to do it. So we will probably be written up for that by HUD, even though it's their fault we didn't get the money until now. So just be aware we'll be trying to rush forward draws to get our balance down. Past projects, the type of projects that we typically do are our rehab projects on public facilities, energy efficiency, handicap accessibility, remodeling so that they can either expand a program or break it down for more smaller units within their program, upgrading the building so they survive for another 25 or 30 years, rehab on owner-occupied homes also. So we have a number of different things. Within the next week, our investment committee will meet to make decisions on our 2019 funding and our reallocation of 2018 funds. When I said we get about $460,000 a year, it's actually closer to $500,000 or more because of program income that we earn off of previous loans or sales of properties. And we've been very fortunate in some respects to get all of this extra income. So we have about $220,000 to allocate of 2018 money that they will be making a decision on, as well as our human services, the $50,000 that's set aside for human services for 2019. So all of those decisions will be made, and we'll be bringing forward those projects shortly. And if you don't have any questions, I'll turn it over to Matt Ozarek.
Oh, actually, we have one more. That's right. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, last but not least, good afternoon. Matt Ozarek, Code Enforcement. So just quick rundown on numbers for this year. We have 1,400 plus open cases, most of those with grass and weed nuisance, kind of followed by icy sidewalks, then a mix of junk cars and dead trees and that sort of thing in there. So moving forward, we're going to focus on the snowy sidewalks and more specifically the downtown sidewalks, those kind of surrounding the schools in those neighborhoods, and then any other high foot traffic areas. So that is all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Do you have a question?
It has a
Okay.
summary.
Yep.
Summary.
Right.
Well, I hope that was beneficial there. We hope to be able to do this at least once a year, but as mentioned, we will be doing this as a newsletter format that will be available online and otherwise so that we can inform the public, and we'll make copies available occasionally at City Council for you as well. So I just wanted to say I'm very proud of this team that I have. Very experienced and have good expertise in their various fields, and we're just happy to be here and be doing what we're doing. So thank you for the time.
Okay. And I think I can speak to all of us that the education and the communication is very much appreciated. Thank you to you, Mr. Young, as well as your staff. I do have Mr. Solomon in the queue. He'd like to address you.
That was fantastic. I love the communication and all the big things you all are working on. One thing that stands out is the professionalism of this team. And I just want you to know from the City Council, you are all very much appreciated. It's a challenging role, but it's also an exciting role. And you all have various projects that you're working on. And Mr. Young, and to your team and all of you, kudos and thank you. Thank you for working with the public. You are great partners with the public in order to help this city be the best place possible. And we all have the same vision and the same goal in mind. And I know you all have the heart for that as well, and your heart for service. And I just want you to know that we do appreciate it. I love this communication and seeing all these projects. We get questions all the time, and I have the opportunity to sit on the Planning Commission, so I have a little bit of a heads up on some of these, but it's really cool to see it all at one time, and it makes you very, very excited about the future of Rapid City, and your fingerprints are on it. And I just want to say thank you, and also to Barb Garcia, who's going to be retiring soon. Thank you once again for all your service to our community. You're very much appreciated, and you will be missed. But I know you're going to finish strong. That's what we do in Rapid City, and so thank you very much. And to Mr. Young, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your frequent communication. And this was very, very good, so thank you very much.
Wholeheartedly agree. Mrs. Drury has some comments as well.
Yes, I would like to ditto what Jason just said, and I thank you for your succinct presentation. You represent Rapid City well. Each one of you, John, Vicki, Fletcher, Kelly, Kip, Sarah, Brad, Barb, Matt, and Ken. Thank you for all you do, you guys. You're just, we know you work hard, and we appreciate you, and I appreciate that if I have a question, you are so accessible for me to get my answers, and I appreciate that. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you. And may I mention that this is only a portion of our staff. Of course, you know that. But we do have a lot of others that are not represented here that are very much on our team and a part of what has been represented here today.
Which are very valued. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we have
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Yes. Okay, we've got a city council meeting this Monday, December 17th at 6:30 in these chambers. I welcome the public to attend our next session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.